I swear I never had the original intention of having my nips out the entire time. Uh, What's up, chicken butts? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you are ready for some more theatrical catastrophes, because it's time for part 2 of Broadway's biggest belly flops. That's right, if you missed the first part, make sure to go back and watch it, because otherwise this one's not going to make any sense. Just kidding. But we did cover 6 shows from Broadway, as well as 2 that never made it, and we're going to do the exact same thing today. So sit back, relax, but not too much, because you need to pay attention, and let me be your guide through some more epic bombs. Can we still say bomb on YouTube? Chitty, bang, bang. Oh. Chitty, bang, bang went to Broadway in 2005, but it was based on the older movie, which was based on the book by James Bond author Ian Fleming, if you didn't know that. It was considered a really beloved children's book, and they did fly the car at the end of the show, which I think Back to the Future does now, so maybe people find that less exciting. But at the time, people were like, oh, fuck, this is the chitty fuck. So there was some theatrical magic as that car flew over the first few rows, probably. But sadly, the rest of the show was not good. The New York Times noted that the songs sounded not unlike what you might hear in a sing-along hour in a pre-K class. Jesus. It closed after 34 previews and 285 regular performances. Not as bad as a lot of these other ones. And producer Nicholas Paleologos noted that a substantial portion of the $15 million initial investment will not be recouped on Broadway. So that didn't even include all of the costs they incurred after they were actually up and running. So that's pretty brutal. Well, I couldn't let another one of these videos go by without slandering Sir Elton John. Obviously, he is a true icon and a pioneer, and when you have a billion projects, you're bound to have a handful that maybe don't go as intended. The Devil Wears Prada musical first hit the stage in Chicago in the summer of 2022. And not only do we have Sir Elton John on the music, but we also have Chicago theater royalty with the director Anna D. Shapiro. The original casting included Beth Level as Miranda Priestley. Of course, the role originated by Meryl Streep in the film, and Taylor Iman Jones as Andy Sachs, who was the role played by Anne Hathaway in the movie, which she definitely just premiered a new face recently, and girl, you looking tight and looking good. Not that I have any business commenting on a woman's appearance. I'm going to use this as a learning opportunity. Oh, and Javier Munoz was there too, from Broadway's The Hamilton musical. Anyway, back in Chicago, the run of Devil Wears Prada. I almost said the run of Elton John. Back to Chicago, where Elton John's The Devil Wears Prada, the musical, is running and was announced as a pre-Broadway engagement. But even before the Chicago production closed, Elton John was doing interviews saying, I don't think the show is ready for Broadway. It definitely needs some more work. And at one point, he even said that he believed at least a year's amount of work would be needed to improve the project. And I just got to say, at some point, you know, if it's opened and it's not great, I get that instinct of like, let's keep going. It's almost there. We could make this better. But also like, maybe move on. Like maybe just let it go. Like why do you want to give another year of your life to something that's not adding much to your legacy? Once again, who am I? The New York Times review of the Chicago run definitely echoed the sentiment that Elton John was saying there in those interviews. They were genuinely puzzled about what the show was trying to be. Was it a sincere story of a young woman finding her feet, or a flashy fashion parade that definitely skimped on the fashions? Like, it's not like these people are walking around. It's not like these people are walking Wow. I don't blame the costume designers at all, because I think that a Hollywood film is, of course, going to have access to real designer clothing and such, whereas the costumes for the stage show need to actually be stage show costumes, and there's only going to be so much of that they can replicate. But it seems to be a general consensus with the feedback that the looks aren't looking. After closing in Chicago, the next act unfolded across the pond, as they would say, in London, when it opened at the Dominion Theatre in late 2024. They replaced the entire team. They have a new cast. So the new director is Jerry Mitchell, who's the director behind Kinky Boots. And the new cast now features the Vanessa Williams as Meryl Streep and Georgie Buckland as Andy. So you must be wondering, did this transatlantic makeover work? Well, the New York Post called it a fender bender compared to the train wreck that they opened in Chicago. So I guess that's a slight improvement. The Post called the music forgettable and derivative. The Times agreed, saying that the costumes were sparkly, but that the production overall lacked va-va-voom. Despite all of this, something on the West End across the pond seems to have clicked, with reports of sold-out audiences and standing ovations, along with an extended run. Although, I did see some speculation online that Vanessa Williams may have been lip-syncing. But perhaps for some, the familiarity and the brand name and the visuals are enough for an enjoyable evening at the theater, even if it's not groundbreaking. So, with slightly more success in London than they had in their Chicago run, will The Devil Wears Prada, the movie, the musical, live on stage, finally make it to Broadway? I guess we'll have to keep waiting to see. I have no idea why I said it like that. Transition. In 1965, we meet Kelly. Kelly was a musical with unusual inspo. It was the story of Steve Brody, who in 1886 claimed to have jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge and survived. Sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me. But if you think this is an unlikely plot for a Broadway musical, audiences agreed. It closed immediately after its opening night. Just imagine, like, good show, everybody. You may want to sit down for this. God, the brutality of that. But it lost $650,000, which in the mid-1960s would be equal to like $7 million today. That's so much money. Like, the people who have this money to throw around sometimes throw it at the stupidest shit. And it's like, you could give me $1 million and you wouldn't even notice that it's gone from your pocketbook or your digital crypto book. It's time for Scary Carrie. Oh God, my dog just... Everybody, this is the love of my life, Miss Zoe. She's cooler than you, and so are we. So 10 years after the movie adaptation of Stephen King's book Carrie, the producers of Broadway shows said, let's try that out on Broadway. So Carrie, along with Buckets of Blood, seemed like a sure hit, a sure thing. But instead, it turned into the wrong kind of horror show, if you follow.
Carrie is a catastrophe.
Because it cost $8 million in the 80s, and it ran for only 16 previews and 5 regular performances before closing. The New York Times said, as the film director Brian De Palma demonstrated in his screen adaptation, Carrie can make for scary, funny, and sexy pulp entertainment, which, they are high school girls, provided the thrills, wit, and post-pubescent sensuality are as sharp as that knife. The musical Carrie fails in all these areas. Well, New York Times, I'm sorry that Broadway didn't get the post-pubescent sensuality right for you. So the show gained kind of a cult following over the years because there's not that many attempts at horror on Broadway, and of course it was such a big bomb. So years later, the score was retooled, the script was retooled, and a new version opened off Broadway in 2012. And of course this was originally intended to transfer to Broadway after a great run. And though reviews were better this time, and this finally allowed the show to become licensable to theaters and schools across the country, along with a really weird fever dream of a Riverdale episode.
Make a plan, be a man. All this freaking crap just gets
But it still could not sell enough tickets, and even the revival ended up closing and ending its run early. I bet Carrie was fucking pissed. Via Galactica, 1972. Originally titled Up with the exclamation mark, that is really a lost art form. But this Broadway musical told the futuristic story of a bunch of social outcasts living on an asteroid in outer space in the year 2972. Among them is the space trash dude who collects garbage in a clamshell-shaped garbage truck ship called Helen of Troy. If you're still with me, can you tell me what I just said, because I don't know. The show included some really over-the-top pyrotechnics and special effects, even using trampolines for the actors to show the weightlessness of zero gravity or however much gravity in space or on the asteroid. But none of that seemed to help. The plot was so incomprehensible that at the last minute, the producers decided to put a plot synopsis insert into the programs. So literally imagine sitting down to watch a show and you open it up and there's like a pamphlet with like tiny ass little font expecting you to read multiple paragraphs in expectation that you might know what's going on. You immediately know, like, oh, fuck, we should have gone to Phantom. I mean, most people are disappointed to get any sort of pamphlet in a program because the most common one, besides an advertisement, would be announcing that an understudy was going to be going on, which I will just say that understudies are some of the most talented people working in any Broadway or theater production of any kind. And a lot of understudies end up going on to play leads and become huge names like some of your favorite actors probably. So if you ever speak disrespectfully about understudies, I'm going to get a laser gun and I'm going to laser hair removal you. Understudies are amazing, and what I was talking about, oh yeah, they put that shit in the program. And so this show, Via Galactica, closed after 15 previews and only 7 performances, probably less than a week if they did a 2-show day in there, but it became one of, if not the first Broadway musicale to lose over $1 million. And like back then, that was more dollars than it is now, I can tell you that much. So Via Galactica was the first ever production at what we call now the Gershwin Theater. The production included Raul Julia, most famously remembered by many as Gomez Addams in the 90s Addams Family movies, at least 2 out of the 3, I believe.
Has the planet gone mad?
And Irene Cara. Remember my name. The irony that I don't know for sure exactly how to say her name when that's her biggest claim to fame. She was, of course, the lead in the original Fame, the musical, and she sang the shit out of that catchy title song, also known by the name of Fame. Sing for me. Phantom of the Opera. It is a classic, but surely you were thinking, what the hell happens after those final bows? Well, I can tell you what doesn't happen. Love never dies. Despite the original's massive success, Phantom 2 immediately joined the ranks of Annie 2, Miss Hannigan's Revenge, and Bring Back Birdie in ruining everything that made the first one so beloved. We jump forward 10 years after the events of The Phantom of the Opera Episode 1. The first show takes place in 1881, so naturally, jumping forward 10 years would be 1891, right? No. Shut up. It's 1907 now. The Phantom has ditched the underground of Paris for a new little spot on Coney Island. I would not have pegged the Phantom. I would not have seen the Phantom as like a corn dog queen. Anyway, Mr. Phantom is running a sideshow, and Christine, in these years after Phantom, has become this world-renowned singer. He sends her, I don't know if it's an anonymous letter or just with someone else's name on it, but he says, please come to New York. I want to present your premiere as a singer here. Christine and Raoul got married after the Phantom events of the Phantom, and now they have a son named Gustave. So she's not suspicious about this invitation at all. She literally just picks up her family and heads to New York. And that's really when everything hits the fan, both for the characters and the production. But are you ready for the epic twist? We learn that 10 years ago, the Phantom and Christine touched bathing suit areas, and Gustave is the Phantom's child. We are in daytime drama territory. The Phantom and Raoul basically make a bet about Christine, and Gustave disappears, and then because we're in the US now, there are guns involved and people get shot. Weber originally announced that Love Never Dies would open simultaneously in London, New York, and Shanghai in the fall of 2009. We had a lot of confidence going in, Mr. Weber. Only a few months later, this was adjusted so that it would only be opening in London before moving to Broadway in 2010 and opening after that in Shanghai. Very soon after that, they changed their plans, saying that instead of Broadway, it would first be opening in November in Toronto, and then a third production would open in February 2010 in Shanghai. A new opening date for London was now announced for February 20th, 2010, and it would open on Broadway on November 11th, and Shanghai plans were just dropped completely at that point. As February approached, Love Never Dies was actually set to open. And other than the first two previews being canceled, it finally began previews on February 22nd and had an official opening on March 9th. And the critics panned the script, the choreography, the designs, everything. After they got just annihilated by critics and kind of struggled to sell tickets, Andrew Lloyd Webber actually made the unprecedented move of shutting the show down so that they could introduce new choreography, new music, lyrical changes, and after that they had a reopening night with critics invited again. And, feedback was a little bit better. Critics said that some of the lyrics were less clunky, and the updated choreography added some zest. But said zest was still not enough, and the production closed on August 27th, 2011. The plans for the Broadway production were just shut down entirely, along with Toronto.
Oh my God!
Along with Shanghai.
Oh my God!
Weber himself partially blamed his own illness at the time in an interview with BBC, and now that I think about it, that's really similar to a quote that Elton John recently gave about Devil Wears Prada. Upon closing in London, Weber announced that now productions would open in China and Canada the following year. Neither of those ever happened.
Whose idea was it to make Spider-Man into a musical?
throw together a popular New York-based superhero franchise, Tony Award-winning Lion King director Julie Taymor, the Broadway version, not the movie version, and music by U2's Bono and The Edge. And what could go wrong? Turns out more than ever, because Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark endured just basically the most iconically awful road to Broadway ever. This disaster piece included many performers that were injured over time because they had these spider people swinging their asses all around a Broadway theater, not set up for this theme park type of shit, this Cirque du Soleil. It wasn't built for that. There was even a near fatality when a stuntman fell 30 feet and shattered his ribs, and this was in front of an audience.
The horrifying accident, captured on video by an audience member, happened just 7 minutes before the show's end. Stuntman Christopher Tierney, playing Spider-Man, leaned over the edge of a platform and plunged about 30 feet.
You hear a bang, then the audience gets very quiet, and you hear some crying from the lady who was playing Mary Jane, screaming, crying.
A cable attached to Tierney's harness apparently snapped. Producers immediately ended the show, and Tierney was taken by ambulance to a local hospital, where he is in serious condition. He reportedly suffered broken ribs and internal bleeding.
The costs just kept spiraling out of control beyond $75 million, the most expensive Broadway production of all time. And because they just couldn't get it right, they were constantly doing previews where the show would be halted for like hours while they had to like untangle a Spider-Man from the sky or some shit. Or the tech just wasn't going right. And so it ran in previews for a record 182 performances. As you will note, that's much longer than most of the runs, if not all of the runs that we've talked about in this video. The runs. 182 previews. And then Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark continued running for 3 years. But because it was so over the top, so over bloated and expensive, and I'm sure the insurance to have these spider people swinging around was just astronomical, the show never, ever, ever approached making a profit. And eventually it had to close. And that is full circle on J. Jonah Jameson. Spider-Man. Anyway, I'm going to feed my dog, and I appreciate you being here. If you are, I might be talking to no one, but what else is new? If you liked this, or, have anything else nice and positive to say, throw that shit in the comments, and don't forget to share and subscribe. Bye. I want to write a historical fiction comedy called The Phantom of the Oprah. That's basically the plot of Phantom, but it takes place backstage, but it takes place backstage of the Oprah Winfrey show while it was taping in the 90s. And, Oprah would, of course, fill in the Christine role. I think that would be good. Do you?